So when you come to a dead end, and we are individually and socially now at a dead end, this is the moment of which it is said man's extremity is God's opportunity. Because we have to stop. And when we stop, we find a world that is happening rather than being done, being shoved. And that happening, as distinct from doing, is our fundamental self. And our fundamental self is not something just inside the skin. It's everything around us with which we connect. When you look out of your eyes at nature happening out there, you're looking at you. I'm not going to say what we should do from then on, but simply that before we think of doing anything in this critical situation, we realize the completely illusory nature of the beings that we think we are, and get back again to the beings that we really are, which includes all this outside world, no longer left outside.
We're gonna try something new, okay? So hopefully the audio on my camera is okay, because right now I am currently recording Instagram story to capture the behind the scenes, but basically I am experimenting with video making and filmmaking, and I just really want to start acting more than thinking and doing more than staying up in my head. So I have this really cool idea that I'm going to try to pull off, and hopefully it'll come together quite nicely. But before I get into it, I wanted to talk about a topic today that can be a little, a little hard to talk about, but I always want to keep it real, and I always want to be honest. And before I go on with that, I'm gonna mute myself real quick on my video reel over there for Instagram. What up? Follow me, Ms. Soulchild. Ms. Soulchild on Instagram. But honestly, I probably should record on my phone the audio part of this, because I don't know if it's going to be very clear. But to each their own. I will record on my phone when I get outside, which is part 2 of the video. But before I do that, I really wanted to talk about self-sabotage and how it's really a real thing, even when you feel like it's just you that is going through ups and downs and doubting yourself. Just know that a lot of people around you in your circle, as a matter of fact, are dealing with it, and it's a valid and real thing. And sometimes it's a little hard to talk about because, number one, you never suspect, your closest friend or somebody you love or someone who you look up to, like famous public figure, influencer, also goes through it. And I think for me, I try my best to put a positive regard for everything out into the world. I try to, like really project that peaceful, joyful, everything around me brings me positivity type of energy. And, sometimes that is definitely the case, and I make it a point to be, but at other times it is not. And I am slowly but surely trying to give myself permission to say and operate from an okay place in admitting that, because it is definitely something I've battled with for a long time. Knowing that it's okay to not be where you're at, or not be where you want to be, or not be where you thought you were going to be like a year ago, And not to say that you aren't even there. A lot of times when we go through self-sabotage, we think that we're not where we want to be, but we're exactly where we need to be. And I think that's one of the first hardest realizations, that everything is happening in the way that it needs to. I think that it's a easy thing to overlook when you got a whole bunch of things, a bunch of responsibilities, obligations, wanting to contribute so much to society. If you're somebody who loves to give back and like just show up for people and be there and very empathetic, like all of those things checked off, it can be a real hard thing when you feel like you're not working towards something, progressing, developing into the person that you want to be. And long story short, the last couple weeks, I'd say, last couple days, have been really tough. And usually when I get into certain types of funks, I like to call them, I kind of retreat and go within and kind of disappear from the face of the earth, and not show up on social media, because I also think social media plays a factor. It's one of many, but it can definitely impact the way that you look at yourself and compare yourself to other people, and just lower your self-esteem if you already have a low self-esteem. And it definitely can do some damage just subconsciously, not even like intentionally. But a lot of people, it is true, they put the positive, the highlights of their experiences, and all the more to them. I do it, like it's a way to celebrate your victories and wins, and really showcase all that you can experience and get out of life. But at the same time, I do think that it's healthy and good to highlight the not so positive things, or the days in which you're struggling the most, because those are also real moments, and not spoken enough about moments. And so, I think number one, it's hard to admit that you may be going through something. And then number two is, when you get into those funks, you just want to close yourself off from the rest of the world, at least in my experience. And like, I start going down rabbit holes of like, I'm not good enough, I'll never be, I am not even like wanting to do anything, so why should I do anything? And it can be a real like devastating negative self-talk, and by the time I circle around and around, I fail to realize that I may not be here, but I am like one more step, one more closer to where I want to be, and I think for me, I live too much in my head, and I think that this next thing is going to be the answer. It's going to be the quick fix. And really, that's not the case. Like, there's no quick fixes, and I already realized that, but I think my illusionary self wants to think that there could be an overnight type of solution or success. But then, if that does happen, how do I maintain it? You know, not only am I sometimes fearful of success, but I'm also sometimes fearful of failing. So twofold in that sense. And I just think at the end of the day, it's really hard to pick yourself up and keep going when you have such deprivating and degrading beliefs about yourself, and like when you're your worst enemy, because we all are our worst enemies from time to time. And it's not necessarily everybody else telling you you can't do it, but what happens when you are the one that's telling you you can't do it? Like, that's the biggest defeat overall. I tend to be this person that wants to achieve so much and wants the best for myself and wants to become the best version of myself. But in the same token, I also am a person that can literally stop myself from the very things that I want. And I wonder if that's a similar experience that some of you have. But what I'm trying to say is the last couple of days I have been not wanting to do anything. I've kind of hit that rock bottom where you just don't have a desire to do anything because you feel like you can't amount to anything, and just bluntly expressing what that emotion really feels like and what it really looks like. And I think when you are in that space and in that place, it can be very daunting and it can be very overwhelming, because on one end you feel like you can't amount to anything. One thing for me is when I get into that headspace, I don't want to work, I don't want to contribute any of my ideas, because I feel like, for one, the type of work that I do still isn't as fulfilling as I would like it to be, and is not necessarily where I want to be. But at the same time, I feel like I don't have the desire to contribute, because I feel like there's not any use if I'm not like being productive, if I'm not using my time wisely, if I'm not, it all goes in a negative cycle, a negative circle, and you start going down a rabbit hole of all the things that you either are not, or all the things that you either should be. And it can be exhausting, you know? Then you start looking up all the YouTube videos of the people that you look up to that are maintaining or elevating or leveling up, and those were the exact things that you wanted to work on and achieve yourself in this new year. And it's like you feel even further and further away of that being a possibility, right? And I feel like when you're in that space, or when I get into that space, it can be very lonely. It can feel very lonely, even though you are not alone. And I want to make sure I make that clear. But you feel like it's just you. It's just you that's the mess up. It's just you that's not being productive. It's just you that can't keep up. It's just you that feels like you're never enough. It's just you that looks at yourself in the mirror and goes, why am I here? Like, what am I even trying to accomplish? Like, I don't feel like I am able to do anything. Like, what's the point? And another layer of that can be, you know, when you perceive yourself to be a certain way internally, that's what you tend to project. And what we tend to project is what we end up tending to perceive. And what I mean by that is we tend to see ourselves in a way where, whether it's limiting or not, is if we do see ourselves in a very limiting way, we're going to do things that then reaffirms that we are limited. But in the same respect, if we look at it in a way where we feel very limitless, we could do anything we set our minds to, and we actually focus on those very things, then we will begin to reaffirm that belief that we can do anything, and that's where the confidence comes in. That's where you tend to build that belief in yourself that you can literally achieve anything that you set your mind to. And I wish it was black and white and clear cut and easy peasy when you're out of that funk or out of that mindset. But when you are deep within it, what do? The first thing I like to do is go outside. That is the first thing I like to do whenever I am in a little rut and don't know what to do. I like to take a step back and get out in nature. I think there's something very special about getting grounded, recentering, and just not taking nature for granted. I think we do that a lot, and it's always nice to be able to get some fresh air and really just take a step back from everything. Because I think when you're in such a overwhelming and compromising position, it's really hard to really take everything for what it is. And so being able to step it out into nature and just really let things be, it's a lot easier to let things be and to let things play out. Because I think at the end of the day, the first thing that comes with realizing that some things are out of our control is the very fact that some things are out of our control. And sometimes you have to put yourself in a different environment to get different results or to feel a different type of way. And so when you're going from a very cycling out of control or feeling like there's nothing in your control, you feel like you can't amount to anything because it feels like you are the problem, when in fact you are not. When you feel that way, when I feel that way, I have to do things differently. I have to take that step forward when I really want to just take a step back, or vice versa. When I really want to take a step forward, sometimes I have to take a step back because I have to allow myself to process the things that I'm going through, and I have to sit with those uncomfortable feelings, beginning to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that is a hard task to do, let me tell you. But it is definitely necessary to do that. So that's my first remedy that I go to, is try my best to get myself out into nature. And whenever I do that, 9 out of 10 times, 10 out of 10 times, I feel a little more refreshed. It doesn't necessarily solve how I'm feeling altogether, but it definitely is a good step in the right direction to feeling a little bit lighter, a little bit more relaxed, and a little bit more centered. The second thing I like to do is reach out to people, or reach out for a helping hand. Because 9 out of 10 times too, you feel very secluded, very on your own, but the majority of the time people are going through very much a similar thing that
that you are. And that's when you really make those deep connections, or a connection with another person, is that commonality of, hey, I'm going through this right now. And, that vulnerability of letting someone in on your situation. Mind you, given the extent of how much you disclose, that is up to you, but it really does help open up to the fact that, a lot of people are going through a lot of things, you included, and it's a sort of a refreshing feeling to be able to know that somebody outside of you is going through a similar thing, or going through something. It doesn't even have to be the same thing that you are going through. So that one is a little bit trickier, because when you are going through that feeling or that emotion of nothing is amounting to anything, or nothing feels like it's going the way that you want it to, my natural reaction is to want to close off and just forget about everything. But you have to do the opposite. I think enough times has steered me in the direction and confirmed that I have to go outside of my comfort zone in order to really get over that hump. It's kind of like climbing a mountain. You can't really go through the dips and valleys. You have to really, the only way up is to go up, And so, yeah. And then the third thing I like to do is, this is probably the toughest one, but it usually comes after the fact, and when I'm at a more level-headed place, but I'm trying to learn how to do it when I am in the midst or beforehand. What I would like to do, and what I usually do afterwards, is I tell myself, you are enough. You are a kind and thoughtful person. You want to achieve so much, and you can. You are capable of doing what it is that you want to do. You just have to take the action. That's it. That's all you got to do. You should not be stopping yourself, but it's okay. It's okay that you are stopping yourself. It's okay that you doubt yourself. It's okay, but know that you don't have to live like that the rest of your life, or you don't have to keep on doing this forever. You have the power to turn that trajectory around, and you have the power to take that step forward and keep stepping forward. Not just take that one step and be done with it, or take that step back. And so I think that's where the real power lies, is that inner belief. That's what motivates us. That's what drives us, because motivation is not everything. I think I have come to realize that motivation can only get you so far. Honestly, it could only get you to a starting point, but once you hit the ground running, motivation will least likely get you to where you want to go. And I had to realize that. What it really comes down to is believing that you can do it, and believing that you are enough, and that you are on your own path. That's the irony, is that we tend to look at people and want to be at the same place that another person is because of X, Y, and Z. Same age, oh, I should be there already, or they're younger than me, oh, I should be ahead of them, or they're older than me, I should be achieving this much faster than them because I have more resources, and yada yada yada. But it's all of what you do at your discretion and at your disposal, because somebody could be at rock bottom and really make something of themselves, and another person can be at the rock bottom and completely not do anything with themselves, and it's all that's kind of what sums up, how to work through self-sabotage in general. But again, like at the very beginning of this video, everybody is different. Everybody has a certain way of, what's going to best work for them. And I really want to emphasize that and make a reminder that, what has worked for me is what has worked for me. But I'm also still trying to learn what could work better, because I still have moments that are very intense and very disheartening to go through. And that's what I wanted to conclude with, is there's always going to be those ups and downs. Like, you're going to have really good days and you're going to have really bad ones, no matter how old you get or how long you've been trying to handle or get a grip on your mental state or your life circumstances. Life is always going to happen, and it really amounts to what you do with those moments, how you respond, how you feel about yourself in those moments, how you see yourself. And so asking those questions, like in the beginning, how do I want to show up for myself? How do I want to treat myself? And how can I become a stronger version of myself by getting through what I'm going through, by rising above what I'm going through, by just merely getting through what I'm going through, not necessarily having to feel like you've overcome something or achieved something or have something to show for, which has been the hardest thing. I always feel like I have to prove myself. I have to prove that I've gotten better. I have to prove that I'm making strides in my personal development, or I've reached a level of clarity and certainty and achievement and success to be able to help somebody else. But really, what it comes down to is, just being raw, just being vulnerable, just being open and disclosing of what it is you actually go through. And that's how you make those true connections, not necessarily that you've gone through it, you've successfully moved past it, and that's the end of the story, because I think there's such power also in people's experiences, what they go through, what they're still dealing with, and how they choose. It always comes down to choice, how they choose every day to rise above it and to move a little bit further past where they used to be and get a little bit better than how they were yesterday or the day before that. And I hope that you find this video helpful, beneficial, and mind all of the outside noises. I just thought I'd mix it up a little bit, coming out here and actually getting outside my comfort zone, because I'm actually filming like right in front of a main road right now where anybody can really see that I have a camera propped up on my tripod in the middle of like a little tunnel walkway thing. But I thought that this would be a cool way to do some video editing and cutting and pasting and cutting to different shots and B-roll. So this is all about experimenting, and I think that's, at the end of the day, that's kind of what life is. Being able to roll with the punches for one, but also being able to laugh about it, being able to still have a joyful experience at the end of the day, even if it's something traumatic or something heavy or something you feel like it's going to take a while or a long time to get over or past. Just know that with each day you have a new opportunity to do a little bit more, a little bit better, to get a little bit stronger. And it's a long game. That is also another realization. I'm just gonna keep going on, I guess, but everything is a long game. Everything takes time. Some things come with seasons and comes with short-term success, but longevity and endurance and resilience and courage to keep going at something, especially if it's something that you can't see the results right away, or you can't see what it will amount to in the end. And that makes it even more of a reaffirming belief that, you know, it's about believing, it's about the process, believing in the process, not the destination. Because I guarantee time and time again in my own experience that when you reach where you want to be, you're always going to want to reach another place or another area or another state of existence where you want to be even better, you know, and it keeps going on and on. So you will never really truly be satisfied with how far you get or how much you do or how much you grow. It's all about the actual act of growing, of progressing, of transforming. That is where the beauty, the real beauty lies, in existing and experiencing and living each day to the fullest. I feel like being able to talk about what you're going through in however of a way that you can find. Like I said, my first part of my healing journey, I didn't really have a lot of things at my discretion, a lot of resources, or even a lot of people. Like, I literally was a recluse majority of the time, and I chose to go within and try to rely on myself and my own guidance. But to a certain extent, when I was by myself and I felt like I was all by myself, even though I didn't reach out like I would have liked to, like I strongly recommend for people who are currently going through something, with me looking back now at how I handled things in the past, I really do think starting off, which is how I started off, if you feel like you don't have anybody that you could go to or talk to, by watching encouraging videos, by reading up on people's personal testimonies and stories, how they changed their life and turned their life around. For those who are really interested in how you can go from point A to point B and really make the most of your experiences, that's where I started. And then fast forward now, you eventually get to a better place to where you can share what it is that you go through, whether it's through therapy, which I have also been through and currently am taking a break right now, but I strongly recommend for people to go, especially starting out, no matter how reluctant you are at least trying it out. And that has really helped in getting me to talk and like release and let things out and let things go. And you get an outside perspective, because sometimes we can't see all the things that are going on with us and within us, because obviously we're going through it directly. So yeah, those are the things that I would say. Those are some starting points. And whether you like to journal, whether you like to read, I also like to do those things when I have the time and am in a good headspace to do that. And yeah, I think that it's all about where you start. It's all about just being able to start. It doesn't matter where you start, but just try to get yourself to make 1 inch of movement in a certain direction, no matter what direction that is. And I strongly encourage that for anybody who is going through something right now. And if it's not as heavy for some people, if you're just like, you know, have decision fatigue and you feel like you can't make a decision, or you feel like you could be going in a better direction and it's not as serious, yeah, I would still recommend to get get yourself out away from where you always exist, and really go out to your comfort zone and expanding your perspective, or just really weigh all of the options that you have, you know. Long story short, I hope y'all enjoyed this, and I had a great time making it. It wasn't as nerve-wracking as I thought it would be, so that's cool. And if you like, subscribe, give a thumbs up. I will be back at it as soon as I can, and this was really therapeutic. I just showed up as my genuine, honest self, and it really made talking about all of this easier. So I hope you find the same experience and a similar feeling of, yeah, things are gonna be okay. I'm okay, yeah. It just takes some time, and if I didn't feel like I did enough today, I will do more than enough tomorrow, you know, and to just give yourself grace that you will have time to do what it is that you want to do, and you will do the things that you want to do. So I'll catch y'all on the next one. Until then, stay safe, stay brave, and get out there.
Get out the way, who got a watch, who got the time, I'm raising the clock. Even in my feelings, grind don't stop. Got big dreams, want big rocks. I got plans, you got talk. Heard it's real cheap, but it's really gon' cost. I'm tryna get these ends, build empires with my friends. I'm about handling my business, no time for stress over bullshit. You think success is an option, I'm tryna get this shit poppin' like woo. Big moves, my rules. Y'all heavy on the tweeting, I'll disappear a whole season like woo. Who said they looking for me? I'ma make you wait for it. Spend a few racks on a shopping spree. Yeah, I'ma make you pay for it. Tell them give it to me when I want it, please. Wait tight on our leg for it. Countdown for me. 12, 11, 10, 9. Hate that, I'ma make you wait for it. On my time. Yeah, I'ma make you pay for it. On my time. My time, my time, my time, my time. Order in the court. Me first, you short. On my time, been off yours. Boss bitches to the floor. It's my time. You was for you, I was for us. You do the math, shit don't add up. Even on my worst day, down on my luck. I got the sauce, I'ma always come up. I tried it your way, that was a dub. I'm taking the wheel now, cause I trust.